Hi everyone, Alison Wesley here. I'm Franklin Method faculty, Franklin Method educator, and I'm going to share just a couple more quick exercises to get you geared up for my Franklin Method Master Your Voice webinar coming up on June 9th. So for this, we'll work with how imagery itself can very much improve and impact how we are able to communicate and how we're able to experience our voice. So come into a comfortable seat. You might stand. Take a moment here just to arrive. Let your attention drop into feeling physical sensation. And we'll begin with a very classic Franklin Method exercise, the shoulder sponging. So you can take your left hand and bring it to your right shoulder. So your thumb is at your neck. You'll be holding on to the trapezius there. Now imagine that you're holding on to a sponge. So a big, like car wash sponge, squeeze it out and imagine that you're wringing out all the gunky water, and then release the wringing out and imagine the sponge is filling three-dimensionally. Let's do that a couple times. You might exhale as you squeeze and inhale as you unsqueeze. And if you'd like, you can add movement. So maybe you lift your shoulder into your hand as you squeeze and release as you unsqueeze. Okay, squeezing out the gunky water and allowing the sponge to be filled with clear, fresh water. Now what I'd like for you to focus on is the sound that this would make. So feel free to close the eyes. Can you hear the sound of the water trickling out, like squishing out of the sponge? Can you imagine that sound? Okay, the trickle, the wringing out of the sponge. And as you're ready, you can release, rest. Of course, notice the effects probably in your posture. You could take your arms through some range of motion and explore how that's impacted the feel of your shoulders. Let's try it out on the second side. So you can take your right hand to your left side. So thumb at the neck, you'll be holding on to your big trapezius sponge. And since we're talking about imagery, right, we're using a metaphor. This is not a sponge, but it's not that far away from a sponge, right? You're very hydrated. Your tissues are very full here of liquid of hydration. So let's imagine as we squeeze that we are squeezing out dirty, gunky water. And then as you release, fresh, clear water, the perfect temperature fills the sponge. Maybe you add the breath. Maybe you add movement. So if you'd like, you can lift as you squeeze, lower as you unsqueeze. And can you imagine the sound? Can you imagine the sound of the washing of the water down your arm, trickling out through your fingers? Like the splashy, trickly sound of water. Cool thing about imagery is you get to make that as much water as you'd like. You can imagine it's a lot of water. You can exaggerate it, or you might like the idea of it being a trickle. Okay, one more time. See if you can pay attention to the sound of the water. And release, let it go. Feel the effects. So there wasn't water sound, but hopefully you were able to even get close to imagining you could hear that. We're going to use that technique. Again, you might close or open your eyes. We'll just go through and see if we can imagine certain sounds. So let's imagine something that we've probably heard fairly recently. Let's imagine the sound of your telephone ringing. What is your ringtone? Now see if you can imagine the sound of someone close to you saying your name. see if you can imagine the sound of your own voice saying your name. Okay, now that's where we'll stay. With the sponge, we were able to add some extra images, right? Clean water, fresh water, maybe cool water. Let's try it again. Try to imagine the sound of your own voice and see if you can layer in some of your favorite images. So I know for me, I'm going to think clear voice. I'm going to think relaxed voice. I'm going to think full voice. Right? Whatever the words are that come to your mind, and see if you can once again visualize the sound of yourself saying your name with those qualities. Okay, let's try it out. And if you'd like, see if you can now vocalize the sound of your name. And imagine that you now can reproduce some of those qualities that you just imaged. I wish I could ask all of you how that went. Right. So this is just another strategy. We'll go more in depth on this with the webinar. Being able to visualize what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and to be able to image some of those qualities that we want to have when we go to speak. So I hope to see you there. Wednesday, June 9th, Master Your Voice, Franklin Method Workshop with me, Alison Wesley. Thank you so much.